Last time we stopped with showing gradient catastrophe and how solutions can be found before gradient catastrophe occurs. So I'll give you a summary of what we have talked earlier. So we started with the PDE. In the PDEs, we have seen how integral curves can act as solutions to a linear PDE, and we extended the same thing to quasi-linear PDE through implicit function theorem, and then we studied the classification of second order linear PDEs, and we moved on to studying hyperbolic PDEs properly. So there we started with second order linear hyperbolic PDEs, and then in that saw uh, we saw the concepts called domain of dependence and region of influence through D'Alembert solution. Then we went on to studying characteristics through first order linear hyperbolic PDEs. So in that we studied advection equation, which is linear advection equation, and we saw how homogeneous linear advection equation led to straight characteristics with constant slope everywhere, like this. And we also saw how such an equation can lead to movement of initial condition either to the left or right. Then we went on to studying non-homogeneous advection equation, which again led to constant characteristics, but the solutions were now not constant along the characteristics like the previous case. Here the solutions were explicitly defined. So next we went on to studying general linear conservation laws, wherein the coefficients are not coefficients are functions of x and t now, unlike the previous case where coefficients were just constants. Now, when the coefficients of linear PDE are not constant, that is when they are functions of x and t, we saw how the characteristics are not straight lines anymore. We had characteristics which are basically curves. Then we went on to seeing and yes, we went on to seeing another case, which is a nonlinear case where the characteristics are functions of u. Previously, not the characteristics, the coefficients are functions of u, where c is a function of u. In the previous case, c was a function of x and t, where x and t are just independent variables. Here, c is a function of the dependent variable itself, which is u. In this case, the characteristics were straight lines, but at each and every initial point, the slope of the characteristic was different. So we had the characteristic, we had for some special example, we had such a kind of characteristics where the characteristics are straight lines for x less than 0, and when they are diverge and the characteristics diverge for x greater than 0. Similarly, when characteristics are converging, this is an example for diverging characteristics, this one, where the characteristics are diverging from a point. It's not necessarily from a point. You can see they don't, with this profile, they'll never intersect. So we call them diverging characteristics. We saw how then we moved on to converging characteristics, and we saw how converging characteristics can lead to gradient catastrophe, wherein the slopes ux is not defined anymore. And then we saw how a Gaussian curve, how the right side of Gaussian curve becomes a shock wave and the left side of Gaussian curve becomes an expansion wave because of the difference in velocity at different points. Then we saw breaking time, which is defined as the time at which gradient catastrophe occurs. So we saw how to evaluate gradient breaking time. Then we saw some examples of finding solutions before breaking time. Now we'll have to see how to evaluate solutions after gradient catastrophe occurs. Like after the breaking time, what will happen, how to evaluate the solutions. That is what we'll be seeing now. So if you notice this picture, which is over here, uh, this is the region that we have studied until now. That is, this is the breaking point, and in this region we have multiple characteristics passing through a single point. So now what we have to do is we have, but we can't have a solution. In this region we can't find a solution because there are multiple characteristics passing through a single point at this region, and we can't follow a single characteristic, and each of the characteristics has solution defined differently, and because solution is defined along each of the characteristics differently. So when multiple characteristics are passing through a single point, we cannot just pick up one characteristic and define the solution at that point according to the definition of that characteristic. So we must go on to identifying some specific characteristic. Let's go on to identifying some specific characteristics. Say, I'm just going to let's say this is a characteristic, and we are just going to draw some specific characteristic, and to the left of this characteristic we'll define the solution in some way. That is okay, let me draw it separately. So now this in this region you will have multiple characteristics passing through at a point. So you're just going to identify some specific characteristic here, and now you'll define the to the left side of this characteristic. Let's say so to the left side of the characteristics, the solution, anyways, you are having so many characteristic curves passing through, right? So to the left side of the characteristic curve, that the new characteristic curve that you have drawn, the solutions will follow this pattern. I mean, you'll have this kind of characteristic. The slopes, the characteristics will have the same slope that is on the left side. To the right of this characteristic curve, so you just identify some curve in this point, in this region, and to the left of this curve, the characteristics will have a slope corresponding to what has already been in the left side. And to the right of this new curve that you have drawn, you will only have the characteristics that were initially passing through. See, in this region now, which were on the left side, which this region which was on the right of this new curve that you have drawn, you initially had many characteristics passing through, right? So you will now remove all those lines that were initially. This intersection actually occurred because the ones on the right and the ones on the left were converging, and they were just combining at this point. So what you do is you remove one of them. So on the right side, you will only have the lines corresponding to this curve. So to the right of this new curve that you have drawn, in this region where you had intersection initially, only these curves will go there. See, these lines which are actually going there will stop at this point. They won't move further. So that is how you construct things so that intersection doesn't occur. Now you will have to identify this. Any questions here? Any questions?
No, ma'am.
Okay, fine. So your job is to identify the slope of this characteristic. This new characteristic that you have drawn can have different slope, different value of slope at different points in the xt plane. So your job is now to identify the slope of this characteristic so that you have continuous solutions on both left and right side of this new characteristic. You basically find a new characteristic through this region. Actually, in the region where you have problem, you just identify some characteristic and you make the solution to be piecewise continuous. That is, the solution is now continuous in this region and continuous in this region. Initially, see, up till breaking time, you had no problem. The solution was continuous in whole of the xt plane, whole of the the real plane. But now you have only piecewise continuous solution because along this characteristic there is a discontinuity, and your u will correspond to the value, and you will take the value of what it already had been for the characteristics corresponding to such a slope, and you on the right side will take the value corresponding to this straight line characteristics, that is with the 90 degrees slope. So you now make the solution to be piecewise continuous after identifying such a characteristic. So now let's move on to defining this characteristic. For defining this characteristic, you only need the slope, that is the speed of the characteristic. So now what we do beyond breaking time is this one. So we already saw that method of characteristic breaks down after the breaking time. That is, we cannot follow the characteristics and get the solution in the region where we had intersections. So t now is defined only between 0 and this breaking time, instead of the previous thing where t was defined from 0 to infinity. So for this PDE, t is actually defined only between 0 and TB. Next, as we have seen before, this is our characteristic. Like, see, in the previous case, if this is the xt plane, your breaking time occurred here. That need not necessarily be the case all the time. You can have breaking time at the initial point itself. You can have this gradient catastrophe occurring at the initial condition itself, that is at initial time itself. So here what we have done is we have drawn a characteristic, just identified some characteristic, and we are defining the solution to be piecewise continuous on the left and right of the characteristic. This picture that I've drawn over here can also be like this. So it can be something like this also, like at some TB. Here you have here the solution. Here is this is the region R, and this is region R minus, and this region is R plus. So it's just in the region R, your solution U is continuous everywhere. Here in region R minus U is continuous, and in region R plus U is continuous. It's just that along this curve U is not continuous. So it's we are defining the solution to be piecewise continuous. So formally we do it this way. So you just take some U to be a piecewise smooth solution of this PDE that you had, the initial the PDE that we usually consider, and this U has a jump discontinuity along this curve. This curve we now call it as excess of T, and we call U to be a piecewise smooth solution to this PDE with jump discontinuity along this curve if the following two conditions are satisfied. That is, the first one is to ensure piecewise continuity condition. That is, U belongs to C1. That C1 in the sense continuity of first derivative. All functions that C1 is a set containing all functions that are continuous in first derivatives. So U is one such function, and so U belongs to that set. So you take such a U, and in both R, in two different regions, R minus and R plus, and you define an initial value problem in both R minus and R plus. The same problem that you had, just that X is now, X instead of running from minus infinity to infinity now belongs to just in the region R minus, and here X comma T only belongs to R plus. That's the only difference. So now you take two different functions U for regions R minus and R plus. So that is a piecewise continuous function, and then for all x naught comma t naught on the curve, like you have this curve which is excess of t comma t, and when t is 0 on, this is the point on the curve, so which is excess of 0 comma 0, and when you move from left towards the curve, you should actually like when you move from left towards the curve, the limit of u of xt as x comma t goes to x naught comma t naught in R minus. That should exist, and also when you move towards the curve from right, then also the limit of u must exist, and they both must exist, but there is no, we don't put a condition that they must be equal, because if they are equal, then then the whole function is continuous everywhere. We don't state that, because we have a discontinuity on that region, and our u is not continuous there. So we don't say that the limits must be equal, we only say that the limits should exist. So this is how the solution will be. This is some general solution, and this is your discontinuity. So you have some u defined on left side and some u defined on right side. So this discontinuity is moving with some speed. For each and every x comma t, this discontinuity will move with some speed. So this is the function u, whole function u at time t naught, and at some other time t1, the function becomes like this. It has moved towards right, and at a different time it has still further moved towards right. So this is to pictorially represent how u behaves after the formation of shocks. So any doubts? Any doubts?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So we have told that U must be piecewise continuous. That is, it must be continuous on both left and right regions of shock. Like across the shock, it must be continuous, but not along the shock. So now we need to find, we have just drawn the characteristic, right? We have not yet found the slope of the characteristic at each and every point. Uh, we have just randomly drawn a characteristic curve. Now we have to find out how that characteristic curve actually looks like. That is along the, we have to find the shape of the discontinuity. For that we need to find the speed at which that discontinuity travels. At least if we find dx by dt, then we'll be able to draw that curve. So that is what we are trying to do. So now uh, that is what is known as shock wave solutions for the conservation law. So I've told you that the PDE becomes invalid after the formation of shock. So now we'll first see how usual conservation laws are defined, and then we'll see how differential form of the conservation law is derived from the integral form of conservation law. So we'll be using integral form of conservation law to obtain the shock wave solutions. So first we will see this. So usually you would have come across this, I guess. Like for any system, this is using this thing you write the conservation law. That is, you consider a volume and you consider some quantity u in that volume. So your conservation law states that net rate of change of u in the volume equals net rate of exchange of u across the volume, then plus net rate of production or absorption of u within the volume. So this is what like is the conservation law. That is, any change inside the volume equals any movement across the surface of the volume, or anything that any production or absorption inside the volume. Like both of these when added up, you get the net rate of change of the quantity in the volume. It may be any quantity. So this is what is the conservation law for any quantity in the volume. So now this thing when written through equations, uh, this is that. So it's like this quantity, we have defined u at every point in the volume. So u of x comma t is defined everywhere in the volume. So now for us to quantify the total amount of u in the volume, we need to integrate it. Now it's just, I have written it in 1D. So this is our control volume where you have m on the left side and n on the right side. So I'm integrating it. And to identify the change, so you change of that quantity in the volume, you differentiate it. So and then for exchange, for the flux, you have another thing which is phi. You just define it. Phi is again a function of u. So now um, phi is defined at both points, and phi, you know, phi is positive when this is the x-axis, positive x-axis. So phi is actually positive if it is on the right hand side, if it is towards right, directed towards right. So if you notice anything, this m, this is our whole control volume. So here at n, things are going out. So this is actually reduction inside the control volume. Here things are going in on the left side. So this is an addition. Here this is a reduction. So you add phi at m comma t and you subtract phi at n comma t. Then for net rate of production or absorption, you have another function. This is the rate of production or absorption. So within the volume. So usually we don't consider this. So we neglect this quantity, and here m and n are constant points, right, on the x-axis. They are not dependent on time. Your control volume is fixed. So you know, upon integration, you can take it inside. So you have ut of x comma t equals, this is written as an integral, where integral of phi x is phi. They are both equal. You would be knowing it. So now this taken on the left side, you get the same thing. Now this is your integral conservation law, integral form of the conservation law. So when m and n are different, this integral is equal to 0 in two cases. One is this quantity being 0, and the other is when m and n are both same, when m is equal to n. So suppose if we consider that m is not equal to n, then this is possible. This integration of this quantity equals 0 is possible only when ut plus phi x equals 0. So this is how you obtain the differential form of conservation law from the integral form of conservation law. So now let's go on to study. Now I've just told about this to you because we require this in doing the shockwave solutions for the conservation law. So also I would like to tell you about Leibniz integral before going to shockwave solutions, because we will be using this also there. So Leibniz integral is like uh, getting an expression to evaluate this term. It is integral of some function. Here, you know, a and b are dependent on the limits of this function. The limits of the integral are dependent on time. So you cannot just take this d by dt inside. So that is why you have this expression. I'll explain you how this expression is obtained. So this is integral of f of x comma t within limits a of t and b of t. So let's say this blue curve over here, this one, okay, this is your blue curve. This is f of t. This is f of x comma t actually, but you know, this is a graph containing a graph with respect to x and f. So it's enough if we since we have x already here and f is drawn along x with respect to x, so it's just enough to only write it as f of t. So now this is your function at time t, and this is your function at time t plus delta t. So now let's just do this integral just for time t. So this is your function at time t, and these are the limits a of t and b of t. So if you integrate this, this is going to be your value of this. The area of this region is going to be the value of your integral. Now similarly, if you do the same for f of t plus delta t, this is your curve, and now the boundaries have moved. This is your a of t plus delta t, and this is your b of t plus delta t. So now this region is your integral. So so when you differentiate it, you actually okay, let me so this is area 2, and let me call this as area 1. So now when you differentiate it, this is actually going to be area 2 minus area 1 by delta t, in the limit delta t going to 0. So this is going to be your d by dt of this integral. So now if you notice, when you subtract area 2 and area 1 from area 2, uh, this will be there. This will be your extra area. This area plus this area minus this area. This is going to be your value of area. This is going to be the expression for area 2 minus area 1, right? So when you subtract area 1 from when you subtract this area from area 2, you will have this area plus this area minus this area. So that is what you are actually writing it here. So if you notice, if you just take this derivative inside, dou by dou t of f, this is f of t and this is f of t plus delta t. Now if you find dou by dou t of f is actually limit delta t going to 0, f at t plus delta t minus f at t by delta t. So and when you integrate that, you will actually be having this area alone. But you know, you're integrating it within limits a of t and b of t. So you will actually be taking this quantity. This region is this one. And then f of b comma t, which is this point, f of b comma t into db by dt, which is basically this region. So this we are adding this region in here. So and in this expression, f of a comma t is this point. Sorry, this point, f of a comma t. So when we do dA by dt, we are actually considering this area. Of course, we'll miss small area over here and small area over here. So that those are neglected actually. So this is how you find this find the value of such an integral. So any doubts here?
Ma'am, I had a doubt.
Okay.
Why does it become dou by dou t of f? Is it a function of two or more variables?
If f is a function of x and t, right?
Okay.
So
Oh, okay, okay.
f, so you write it as dou by dou t of
Okay.
f actually is a function of x and t.
Okay.
Here, if you notice, we are integrating it over f, over x. I'm sorry. So you'll not have this integral will not be a function of x anymore. So we write d by dt. Here, f is a function of x and t.
Okay, okay.
Any doubts? Is it clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So we'll be using both of these concepts in getting the Shockwave solutions for a conservation law. So so this is the usual problem we had. Like for the implicit Burgess equation last time we had ut plus ux equals 0. Here instead of that we write phi x equals ux. So our phi is actually half u squared. So when you differentiate this, we'll get ux, which is the same over there. So this is the case for implicit Burgess equation, which we saw last time. Any equation that we saw last time, that is whatever the form we had over here, can be written as just phi x in general, like this. So we just consider some general case, ut plus phi x equals 0. So for any time t greater than tb, which is the breaking time, ux does not exist. So this which we saw last time. So we go to the integral form of conservation law. which is this one, d by dt of integral a to b u of x comma t equals, so this conservation law is written for this region. So you have a shock wave, which is some characteristic actually. Now let's just not call it shock wave, let's just call it discontinuity. We have a discontinuity over here, that is u is now a continuous function in this region r minus, and u is a different continuous function in r plus. So along this curve we have some kind of a discontinuity. So we consider 2 points A and B to the left and right of this curve. So then for this region we construct a conservation law. So this is our control volume. So for this control volume, this is going to be the integral form of conservation law, and we have integration from A to B. Let's just take it from just a to excess of t minus. I'm not writing it as excess of t, it's just excess of t minus, because this is just a curve, and integration is actually measured by area. Even when you have a discontinuity, okay, let's say you have a function over here. This is some function. So when we want to integrate this function in this region, for this region, you need to consider this whole area. It's okay to break it up into 2 different areas, because we have a discontinuity over here. So we are breaking this integral into 2 different integrals, that is a to excess of t minus plus some excess of t plus to b. It is from a to some point to the left of excess of t, as close to excess of t actually, and from some point as close to excess of t from the right to towards b. So this is how you take the integration. Then you split this integral into 2 different integrals. Then you just keep the same thing over here. So now since excess of t is a function of time, and we are differentiating the integral over with respect to time, so we need to use our Leibniz rule over here. So this is basically we need to use the whole of this. Actually, we have 3 different, this one integral will split into 3 different quantities. So which is this first integral. This first integral, we have it over here, dou by dou t of u of x comma t dx. Then this first quantity that we are adding is over here. It is u of xs minus comma t dxs by dt, which is this first quantity. The second quantity is actually 0, because here we do some dA by dt. Here a is not a function of t. A is actually a constant. These 2 points, this is a fixed control volume. It's just your curve is a function of t. So for this we need here this quantity dxs by dt is not 0, but dA by dt is 0. Similarly, we use Leibniz rule for the second term, where we have these 2 terms. Here as well, here we get a minus sign over here, because for the derivative of b we'll have positive sign, and for derivative of xs plus we'll have negative sign. This is going out. I mean, actually the flux over here at point b is going in towards the region, and flux over xs plus is going out of the region. So we have a minus sign over here. That is this quantity is this one. Here for the second term, this is 0, which is dB by dt is 0. So now that you have got this expression, you move this control volume towards the discontinuity. That is, you move the endpoints of this control volume towards the discontinuity. So make A approach excess of t minus and B approach excess of t plus, which means these two integrals become 0. So we'll only have these terms. So those are written over here, but anything that is A will get transformed to xs minus and B will become xs plus. So now taking dx by dt outside, you taking other things on the other side, you have phi of xs plus minus phi of xs minus, comma u of xs plus minus u of xs minus. So which is basically difference in flux across the discontinuity by difference in u across the discontinuity. So this condition is usually known as the Rankine-Hugoniot conditions. So this expression dx by dt equals difference in phi by difference in u. The speed is known as this is actually the speed of our discontinuity. So now we have identified the curve along which jump discontinuity occurs. That is, if we have found the slope of this curve at each and every point. So if we integrate this, we'll get an expression for xs of t, which is basically this curve. We'll be able to draw this curve now. Initially, we just drew a random curve and we just said that solutions must be piecewise constant along across the curve. So now we have just identified the curve exactly with this expression. So now after identifying this curve, we'll be able to get a complete solution for you after the breaking time. Any questions till now? Any questions?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So now let's move on to the example which we saw last time. So this is the Invisi-Burgess equation. Here you had x moved between minus infinity and t between 0 to infinity. So and we had such an initial condition. For x less than 0 we had 1 and for x greater than 0 we had 0. And between 0 and 1 we had 1 minus 6. So generally we found the characteristic. It is dx by dt equals u naught of x naught. I mean, we saw last time, right, how to evaluate the characteristics. That is how to get the equation for characteristics. So, which is from this, from this, if we notice, we have c of u equals u. So dx by dt equals c of u naught, right? So which is basically u naught only. And at each and every point we have at each and every starting point over here we have different u naught. So you have u naught of x naught and x of 0 equals x naught. So from this, integrating this, you get the equation for characteristic. So this is how we found these characteristics last time. Now solution is defined. And along the characteristics, solution is constant, right? So we got these, and you use u equals u naught of x naught along these curves. So along each and every curve, you have your u to be constant. So since in this region, u is defined as 1, right? You have 1 over here, and in this region u is defined as 0. You have 0, u equals 0 over here. So this is your solution. And in the region between 0 and 1, you had this 1 minus x, u equals 1 minus x. So at each and every, you have this kind of a function. So and Till breaking occurs, you are able to evaluate the solution. That is, till this green curve, you were able to evaluate the solution initially. So now, just a minute. So, okay. Till breaking time, you were able to evaluate the solution initially. So now what happens after gradient catastrophe occurs? So how has this solution been evaluated? From t equals 1 till t equals 4. So for that, we told that after the discontinuity occurred, the solution is piecewise constant. So this discontinuity will move with some specific speed. So what we have done is we have identified the speed of this discontinuity, which is by using the expression which we got, by using this one. So let me evaluate the speed of that discontinuity, which is dxs by dt equals difference in flux across the shock by difference in u across the shock. Here our flux is half ux squared, right? So which is basically, okay, let me just call this quantity towards the left of the shock. Let me just say that u is ul, and towards the right of the shock, let me say u is ur. So I have half ur squared minus half ul squared by ur squared not squared. Here you have difference in u, so ur minus ul. So which is basically half into ur plus ul. So this is the speed of your shock. Since ur and ul are constants here in this problem, because you have 1 and 0, they are not actually functions of x and t. So the speed of the shock is a constant. Otherwise, if they are functions of x, then at each and every point you will have a different speed. So now we have evaluated the speed of the shock. So we'll make the now that we know the speed of the shock, we know the value for it, and we know the time at which we are going to find the solution. So using this time and speed, we'll be able to find the position of the shock. So that is how we have found this position. Now at this point, it's somewhere over here. It's somewhere over here, some 1.5. So and at the next time step, it has still further moved towards right. If you notice, the shock is moving towards the right, and you have constructed the solution to be piecewise continuous on the left and right of the regions of the shock. So any doubts here? This example is a very simple one. If you have ur and ul to be functions of x, then the speed will not be constant. It will actually be different at different points. So any doubts?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So next one. Here breaking occurs at the initial condition. That is the characteristics intersect right from the initial point. So we have intersection in this region. So you need to find some you'll have to find some characteristic curve here, some characteristic curve over here. Let's say of and then if we notice using the method which we have seen earlier, the speed of we have found the characteristic curves. Since the equation is same, this is the same Invisib-Burgess equation. Here again your initial conditions are all constants. So if we evaluate, this quantity is going to give us a constant. Let's say in this region, let me just do for this shock. So for the shock over here, dxs by dt is going to be, which we evaluated to be half ur plus ul. For the Burgess equation, this is the expression. This expression will be different for different kind of equation you take. So since the equation is same as the previous one, I am using the same expression. So now for this discontinuity, to the right side your solution is 1, ur is 1, and to the left side you have the solution to be 2. So now I have 3 by 2. So the speed of this shock, this one, is 3 by 2. So basically xs equals 3 by 2 t plus some x naught. And this is a x naught is actually 0 because this shock is at point 0. So this is actually 0. X is equal to 3 by 2 t. This is the equation for this shock. Now similarly I can find an equation for this shock, which will be half into again ur plus ul. This time for this shock ur is 0. Towards towards the right of 2 x equals 2 we have 0, and towards the left of x equals 2 we have u equals 1. So now the slope is 1 by 2. Now the equation for this characteristic will be this one. So now this is for this characteristic, for this discontinuity, your equation is this. If you notice, the slopes are correct. This is x-axis, then this is t-axis. So towards for the first characteristic, for this characteristic, you see x equals 3 by 2 t, which means the discontinuity should be more inclined towards x and less inclined towards t, and that is what is happening over here. If you look at this, this is x equals 1 by 2 t, equal inclination on for both x and t. So which is basically, if you notice, it's 45 degrees. So now after we have drawn the characteristics, but here and these characteristics themselves intersect. So that leads to a formation of another shock. That is the third shock. So hence we have to like if you notice in this picture, that is in this picture where I'm showing. So here if you notice, if we somehow find some shock over here and find some shock over here, there is a possibility that these two intersect, and again we'll have a region of intersection. So since these two shocks intersect, we have a formation of another discontinuity. So we need to evaluate the slope of this discontinuity as well. So which is again half into, to the right of this discontinuity we have u equals 0, and to the left of this discontinuity we have u equals 2. So this is just 1. X is equals t. Oh, yes, this is only 45 degrees. This is, I was wrong here. Here you don't have 45 degrees. This is actually 45 degrees. Here you have more inclination. Xs is, the characteristic is more, the discontinuity is more inclined towards T and less inclined towards X. So this is your shock wave solution for this problem. If you notice, the shocks themselves can intersect and lead to formation of more shocks. So, and you know how to evaluate the speed of the shock. So from the speed of the shock, you can find the an equation for the characteristic for the discontinuity itself. So when you find an equation for that discontinuity, you get to find the solution towards the left and right of that discontinuity. That is a piecewise constant solution towards the left and right of that discontinuity. So this is it. Any doubts here? It's just that you have different times in this plot. This first plot is till time t equals 1, so you have characteristic, and this plot is time till time t equals 1.5. You see, from time t equals 0 itself, from this point itself, you have some characteristics intersecting. So you have to find some one common characteristic through this region. And you can find this bunch of intersecting characteristic, like this bunch of intersecting characteristic is again intersecting with a different bunch of intersecting. That is, here this is one common bunch wherein this bunch is getting intersected with this bunch. This you can see just by looking at the characteristics itself. This one is for time t equals t up to 2 up till 2.5. So here also, if you notice, this bunch wholly, like you have an intersecting bunch and you have another intersecting bunch. They both together intersect, and you have more and more of intersections. So in every region where intersection happens, you need to construct some curve, and you need to find an equation for that curve using the shock wave solution, and then you will say that the solution is constant towards the left. The solution is continuous on either side of the curve and not along the curve. So any doubts here?
No, ma'am. It's clear.
Okay. Also, this is a 3D picture. Here we have x time and solution u. So at time t equals 0, you have some discontinuity. That is, initial condition itself is discontinuous, if you notice. So that is what is evident from this characteristic picture as well. So you have this curve, this blue curve with two discontinuities. And now through shock wave solutions, we found the speed of these two shocks, right? We found the speed of these two shocks, so we'll know with what speed these two shocks move, these two discontinuities move. So we'll be able to evaluate the position of these two at next time steps. So then, since we have these characteristics still coming up, so you have this u still going towards the right. And as the shocks move towards the right, the solution also moved towards the right. And again, at this point where at t equals sometime close to t, if you notice, two shocks are coming closer. Over time, these two shocks are coming closer, and here intersection happens between these two regions. That is between these two times intersection happens and one shock forms. Then move. So this is the solution over time, a 3D picture. So can I give some exercise, such an exercise where you have to code and see the shock, you have to code and get the picture of characteristics and get the solution. Is it okay to give such an exercise?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So I'll give you some kind of a similar exercise. You can use any coding software like MATLAB, Python, C, C++ or whatever. You can just get some graphs where you can some plots of the characteristics and solutions. Okay. So any doubts? Okay. So if there are no doubts, we can stop this session. We'll have the next
Yes,
session.
ma'am.
Okay. On Saturday. Coming Saturday.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.